Hello, good evening, and welcome to this week's edition of Mackmyra Life. I believe it's episode 12. So with me, Micky Richard, and my co-host, Richard McKean.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Mick.
And tonight we've got a special guest all the way from the bonny banks of Loch Lomond Group, but especially across there in Campbelltown from Glen Scotia, is Gary Mills.
Evening, everyone. Thank you for having me along, gents.
Yeah, happy to have you. Really good to have you. I'm excited to talk a little bit about Glen Scotia and touch a little bit on Loch Lomond as well at some point, because I know that we've got a big following in Sweden for the group. So tonight, just to explain the show about what we're going to be doing, we're going to compare and chat about some of the drams that both of us guys produce, Mackmyra and Glen Scotia in particular. Talk a bit about the distilleries, what makes them unique, and sit back at home if you're watching for the next hour or so, pour yourself a dram, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit of something. I don't know if you're coming from you've been following Mackmyra or you've been following Glen Scotia, or the both of us, but hopefully there'll be a little something in it for everyone. So looking forward to it.
Yeah. Excellent. So I guess the first thing we should do really is get to know a bit more. That's before the first dram as well. Get to know our special guest just that little bit more. So Gary, tell us a bit about yourself. What's your role with Loch Lomond Group? And so while Gary tells us a bit about himself, I think we'll get stuck into the first dram. And the first dram this evening will be Spence, yes. So Gary, while we pour a dram, please do tell us.
Yes. So my role within the group, I am the brand manager for Glen Scotia and Little Mill brands. I've been with the Loch Lomond Group for coming on 6 years now. When I joined, we had 3 Glen Scotia whiskies, 3 Loch Lomonds, and 1 Little Mill release. And I think now we're up to, not counting special editions, 12 Loch Lomonds, 14 Glen Scotias, and we're on about our 6th Little Mill release. So yeah, it's been a crazy, mad few years, but I've loved every second of it, and it's just the changing days of being able to do managing products, product launches, but even just getting out and doing these kind of things and tastings. When we were allowed to actually go out and do tastings, but yeah,
actually,
this new digital world is. Yeah,
it's probably nice to be able to sit down for a little bit, Gary, because it sounds like 6 years ago it might have been a bit more quiet than the last few years, and getting busier and busier.
Yeah, you'd be surprised. It was still, back in those days, the marketing team. When I joined, I doubled the size of the marketing team. Put it that way. So, and we're still in about, even at that early stage, we were still in kind of 40 odd markets, but now we're in 100 plus. Across the world, and yeah, it's just trying to cater for all the needs. So that was then we started off initially just looking after everything between us, but then we went on to a bit more kind of specialisation, if you like, a bit more individual brand focus. And yeah, since week 1, my very first week with the company, it was spent in Campbelltown with Ian and the team, and since then I've been absolutely smitten with Glen Scotia.
Yeah, wow. I think that's something Micky and I didn't quite get to do. We joined mere weeks before lockdown came in.
Yeah.
Any plans that we had to get over and actually spend any time with Angela or the team over in Sweden?
I was going to say, I don't think they would have sent you to Campbelltown, Rich. It probably would have been Sweden.
Yeah, it would be quite strange for a couple of Mackmyra brand ambassadors to rock up to Glen Scotia Gates and go, excuse me, guys, can you tell us about your whiskey so we can talk about a completely different distillery, please?
Sweden. Anyway, so when was the first time you came across Mackmyra, Gary?
It was a Twitter tasting, actually. Must have been 3 years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago. Kind of really early on. I kind of hadn't really heard of Mackmyra at that time. Popped up on the Twitter feed, and yeah, I was on board, and I've been kind of followed it with a passion since then. I think there's some nice similarities. Obviously, we'll kind of go through it a wee bit, but in terms of the fruit level across the range of the Mackmyra stuff, I go nuts for. And we've kind of obviously got kind of fruity elements going through Glen Scotia and Loch Lomond. So it was just one that just tickled my fancy, so to speak.
The fruits with yours is the tropical fruits is what I love, and I tend to find in most of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I get more of the tropical fruits and the older stuff. kind of more kind of orange and apricot and stuff in some of the younger.
That was obviously when the Caribbean winds were a bit more prevalent.
Oh no, still are. We're still in the Gulf Stream. It's Campbelltown, and you'll see it in here. It's the reason why we'll get palm trees. There's palm trees in Campbelltown, and they thrive just because of the Gulf Stream coming through.
It's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, you don't expect to get across there. You know, I've driven around from Glasgow and around the Campbelltown, and it's like, what? Who planted these? So I mean, why these? Did they come in this size? Do you replace them every year?
Are they plastic?
No, it was the swallows bringing the seeds over.
Yeah.
An unladen swallow.
So that yes, European or African?
It's an important question to ask, yeah.
Well, it is, isn't it? Really, we'll give a wee prize out to the first person that can give us the answer to what film that was from.
I hope it's coming out of your pocket, Micky.
That's fine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure we can wangle a hit flask or something like that. Do you know what I mean? That's no problem whatsoever. So a hit flask to the first person that can tell us the name of the film. Our completely unintended laden swallow skit was from there. So Gary, you've managed to have a wee nose and a wee taste of this Svensk. Is this the first time you've tried it?
No, I've had Svensk a couple of times. Really enjoy it. And it's Swedish oak, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes. Well done.
He's done his homework.
There wasn't a prize for this one though, so no prize for that because you've known what the jams are going to be for a wee while now.
Whisky is much. Yeah, no, and again, I do. It's again on the nose that the real fruity note is the first thing that comes to me on it, and it's magic. And again, it's layers of fruit. It's not just one fruity note. As you keep kind of back in and out to it, you keep uncovering more. I quite like the bit of spice you get just on the finish with that Swedish oak influence coming through there. Because obviously it's not as sweet as your American oak or some other European oaks, etc. But you get that nice little bit of spice coming through on the finish. What about you, Rich?
I was just thinking the same sort of thing. I like the. I always talk. People have heard me say it before, I'm sure, but Swedish oak having like a cooking effect on those fruits. So you get fruits, as Gary said, not throughout the entire range, but you can find it in just about most of it, especially the core. But adding just 10% of the, it's all ex-bourbon, apart from 10% that's gone into Swedish oak for the final 18 months, and then vatted back together before being bottled, and just that's enough to leave some of those fruits there. But then, add like some darker, heavier chocolates or heavy, notes, dark chocolate, pepper, a bit of wood spice on the back, but still got that. Yeah.
So Carl, who's running our technical background for us today, he that's one of his favourite tasting notes as well. The dark chocolate, he gets that quite a bit, especially coming through on the finish. Yeah, no, that's good.
No, like it, gents. I think it's got a real nice balance of the fruit and the wood. Nothing overpowering anything in there. Just everything all working together.
No, exactly.
Yeah. It's got a real nice, lovely drying finish as well. Nothing. Sometimes you get something that almost dries your palate out too much, but that for me is real nice.
But it's nice, so you get a bit of sweetness from the fruits and stuff like that. Then the peppery finish kicks in, and it dries out a little bit, but not so much that you're left going. Like you could have some like really old cherry stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just literally like on the finish,
I've never been a big fan of drying finishes. When I say drying, as though that's the only part of the finish. Like as you see, full maturation sherry casks, for example. In 12, 13 years, it can be dry as you like on the end. But this has got that drying part or element to it that then builds back up. A bit like the yak liquor, Micky. I don't know, Barry, you've tried the yak liquor yet, the new season of. Lots of berry influence. So blueberry and lingonberry wine influence in the part of the recipe anyway. That has something that when I first tried it got really dry because of those berries, and then after a few seconds of me thinking I'm not too sure about this one, it just built up into this big crescendo of fruits and juices at the end, and made it great.
I think I love a whiskey that will take you on a journey. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are times when you just want a nice, straightforward whiskey. Basically, what you get in the nose, what you get in the palate, and you're done. But a whiskey can, like you said, take you through ups and downs of different flavours. It's great fun. It's great fun. I love doing it. Yeah.
No, great.
Nice. So we've actually got a bit of a wee deal on this evening as well. If you buy a bottle of the Shushbashuruk, which we're going to be tasting a little bit later on, you can get 40% off a bottle of Svensk Gjech, and you should see the address and information on the bottom of your screen there, guys. So just bear that in mind as we're going through it. So if any of these appeal to you, so buy a bottle of Shushbashuruk and get 40% off a bottle of Svensk Gjech.
Just showing off now, Mick. That's.
Is there another?
Honestly, we did our launch show with Angela, our chief nose officer, or our master blender, on Friday. Just gone there, and I've practiced it for about 2 days solid. The pronunciation of it that I come out with just went horribly wrong. Just went horribly wrong. So there's a bit of mocking and a bit of fun ensued with that. So that was pretty good, you know.
I saw on that launch show that Angela took a phone call halfway through from
her mum.
Gave you a bit of breathing space. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
You can't ignore your mum. You have to pick up your mum. Everyone. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Well, is it time for a Glen Scotia, do you think, Mick? Or?
Yeah, definitely. So, Gary, what you got for it, brother?
So, first one we've got is the Glen Scotia 15. That's for me. For anybody that's done a kind of tasting with me at any point before, I refer to this as Campbelltown in a glass. Yeah. It's got absolutely every bit of the Campbelltown characteristics that you'd expect, and just very. They're all, and I'm glad I picked this one because it just got a lot of similarities to the Svensk Gjech, and the fruits and the balance and everything there. Yeah, it's a magic drink.
Well, like you said, it's Glen Scotia in a glass, Gary, and we like to think obviously Svensk Gjech is archetypical of Sweden in a glass. Do you know what I mean? Nice, fruity with that Swedish oak influence. So it's a good first dram from each stable, as it were.
Definitely. That is a brilliant way of putting it. I'm glad, because I always think about this as like showcasing Sweden, and we're trying to be quintessentially Swedish as possible. And Gary, if you're saying that this to you is Campbelltown in a glass, and I think we've stumbled across a good pairing, I think.
Oh no! It was all planned. It was all planned out. Actually.
Brilliant.
Okay,
So we've obviously mentioned Campbelltown in a glass there, Gary. So going to give us a little bit of background on Glen Scotia and it being in the whiskiest place on earth.
Yes, so I mean, for those that don't know, Campbelltown is on the Kintyre Peninsula, which is in the kind of far west coast of Scotland. And for a period, it was the Victorian whisky capital of the world. Ultimately, it's because it's at the very end of a shipping lane. They would kind of go in and out through Glasgow and off into the New World as it was then. So you had the kind of ships coming through with the casks, but you also had fresh, soft water, plenty of it available. Locally grown barley at the time, and then there was a local coal mine, so you had the fuel as well. So ultimately, what that meant was that you had just literally boatloads of entrepreneurs coming down. There was money to be made in whiskey at the time as well, and they all came down, and that's what they did. So you had a period from that kind of early 1800s. At any one time, you were talking upwards of 20, 25 distilleries in this one town, which at its peak had 9,000 people. That was it. And at 26 distilleries.
I think we've got a picture. There we go.
Yeah.
All those pink buildings there.
Yes.
Are distilleries.
So, I mean, yeah, if you didn't work in a distillery, you worked in something to do with the distillery, or you knew somebody that worked in a distillery. So and that's why it ultimately became known as the whiskiest, well, the Victorian whisky capital of the world, or as we call it, the whiskiest place in the world. Unfortunately, then, due to a number of factors, again, it was almost the reverse of the goodwill and the factors to create the boom. There was an equal number of factors that created the bust. You had prohibition, you had world wars, the coal mine closed, so nobody could get cheap fuel. And just the house of cards all started coming down. And the blenders wanted to start using more Speyside for their blending. But I mean, that's not before the time. I mean, it was literally a period of probably around 100 years where if you were drinking Scotch whiskey, the chances were you were drinking Campbelltown Scotch.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Well, you know,
I think. Oh, sorry, Mick, you go.
No, go on, mate.
No, I was only going to say. You mentioned literally. Boatloads of entrepreneurs coming over. One of the things I heard, and part of the downfall as well, perhaps, was the lack of a train line being put in. So, getting a ship from Glasgow or wherever it might have been was,
Well, I mean, that being said, if you think about at the time when that real boom time, you could get from Campbelltown to Glasgow using kind of steamships in 3 hours. And if you think it was in terms of getting from Glasgow up to the Highland distilleries, that was going to take you a couple of days. The tracks and things and the transport to there was terrible. So we were the closest distilleries for a lot of folk as well.
So I think maybe it's a bit of a victim of its own success as well, wasn't it? One of the factors was, so many people wanted liquid from Campbelltown being the whiskiest place in the world. So there were demands being put on them, so they were upping their rates of distillation and churning stuff out, and it sort of lost its quality as well, didn't it?
Yeah, that was some of the factors. So again, competition's so high, you would imagine the margins in there are going to be so low because the competition's so high. So as soon as the coal mine shut, and people had to start sourcing fuel from elsewhere, those costs started going up. So a few tumbled because of that, and then, like you said, some of the quality tumbled in a few. And that may well have been part of why the blender started moving more towards the Speyside guys. So like I said, as much as there was that wonderful mix of things that created the boom, there was a horrible mix of things that caused the bust.
Yeah, it was a similar sort of thing that ended it as well, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? So what made it great and what made it grow was, like you said, ultimately as well, its demise. So if you look back to throughout all of whiskey, especially Scotch whiskey at the moment. You go on these great distillery tours and you're seeing old Bobby mills and Porteous mills and stuff like that, But, well, why are they not made anymore? Well, like Campbelltown whiskey, essentially, it was a victim of its own success. All these old mills are still going like 100 plus years later with very parts that, easy maintenance and don't need replaced for umpteen years. So there was no customers left to buy parts from it.
No, exactly.
So everything worked. So there's like, oh great, what do we do now? All right, great, we'll just retire and shut down then.
From a Glen Scotia point of view specifically, in terms of why we survived, it was ultimately luck, and the kind of owners that we had through the piece. We were lucky enough to have Duncan McCallum through that kind of worst of times. And obviously Duncan, for those who don't know, had a real distilling pedigree, had stakes and ownerships in 5 or 6 distilleries through his life. And he was able to keep us going, helped to kind of rebuild the distillery before the bust. And then obviously his contacts meant we could kind of keep the lights on through that worst of times.
So was Glen Scotia one of the distilleries that have continued to be operational, or did it have any downtime?
No, we've had quiet periods, and I think almost every distillery in Campbelltown did. I don't think even our pals over the road had a couple of kind of shutdowns, even if you think like during World War II and things.
I was going to say, look at the World Wars where you couldn't use the barley for distillation.
The government just commandeered all the barley, so we weren't allowed, nobody was distilling. So I know everybody had their kind of downtimes, certainly.
Okay.
But like I said, just that luck of ownership meant there have been the right people have come along at the right time, seen that potential in Glen Scotia, and kept us going.
Yeah, there it is.
Beautiful looking place.
I miss the V2.
Sorry, Gary.
No, sorry. I'm just saying I miss the V2. I've obviously with everything going on, I've not been there since the start of the year. But yeah, that's ultimately a picture of, you would say, 80% of Campbelltown. And imagine 20-25 distilleries in that space is just bonkers.
The smell in the air would have just been, unbelievable. You smell it in Northern Ireland, I expect, on
yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. The history
the right
involved.
breeze in the right aspect, you're all good.
You'll have it somewhere. I used to live near the Mars factory, just outside the west of London, and we could smell that caramel every now and then. But I'd trade that for living near a bunch of distilleries, so concentrated. The history involved. I'm only going to say the history involved in Campbelltown. Just use the word concentrated again. Just the history of Scotch and whiskey in general, just in this one tiny little place that, as you said, 9,000 at its peak. 25 odd distilleries and things, and then slowed down and gone away, come back a little bit again. One opening not too long ago, or not too many years ago. But I'm very glad that Glen Scotia is one of the ones still producing, and it's still there, and it's producing things now, because I love the stuff.
I suppose the only way you could describe it now would be like a Victorian version of what Speyside is now, with its concentration. And I suppose, Speyside probably not even that concentrated compared to what Campbelltown was, because things are still pretty spread out over there, But at the moment, out of the 5 regions, obviously Campbelltown is the most congested. So I suppose it was like the original Speyside, really.
I think if you went on square footage of the town versus some other distilleries, we'd probably still be doing it right now.
Even more, because there's more than half of the distilleries in Scotland are currently, would I be right in saying, in Speyside? So I wonder at what point, when Campbelltown was at its peak, what the percentage was of distilleries, that existed in Scotland, and how many were in Campbelltown. Because
it's whether you're talking legal distilleries or
that's the thing right there, isn't it?
Some of there are always some cracking stories you get coming out of Campbelltown, and one of my favourites was, obviously, there was illegal illicit distilling was rife in the hills in and around the town. So the excise man came up with this wonderful idea where you could trade in your still, basically like an amnesty. So if you brought your illicit still in, they'd give you cash. Brilliant! That's what everybody wanted to do it. So and the boys come into their illicit distilleries, get their cash. Where do they take their cash? Down the road to the coppersmith. Please build me a bigger still, and off they go again.
I was laughing as you were saying that, because I've heard that story before, and I just think it's fantastic. But they just
entrepreneurship. That's what I'm talking about. That's
that is. Well, where there's a will.
And then sorry, go on. I was going to say my other favourite story from Campbelltown that Ian loves to tell is that little known factor, and I don't know how much rumour or how much truth there is in this one, but apparently if an excise man died in Campbelltown, he wasn't allowed to be buried in Campbelltown distillery. Campbelltown cemetery. There's literally a graveyard up the hill, out the town.
Away you go. It's probably based on a bit of truth. It's probably been embellished over the years, like a lot of these great stories are, But there probably is an element of truth there. One excise man or whatever like that died on a trip to Campbelltown. Wasn't he allowed to be buried there because he was like? So he's up the hill. So that's probably just grew from there to like that one guy that happened to happen to. No excise man can be buried in Campbelltown ever.
Well, if it was just the one, that's still 100% of them. So the story's still
that story was told 100%.
Brilliant. So obviously with like the decline, essentially, Campbelltown dropped down to 2, didn't it? Down to 2 distilleries.
Yeah. So for a good while, it was just
Springbank.
Yeah. And thankfully our friends over at Springbank reopened the Glengyle distillery. Because obviously the SWA came and said, well, you need to have a minimum of 3 distilleries to remain a region. So yeah, my hat goes off to our pals over the road for keeping us in the loop on that one.
No, definitely. And I think everybody's thankful for that as well, Gary. Do you know what I mean?
And to be honest, see with the number of new distilleries opening across Scotland, flabbergasted there aren't more getting opened in Campbelltown. They're going to run out in space on Isla pretty soon, so then they'll kind of just need to come over.
That's a good point.
Exactly. There's obviously the buildings and the spaces still left, but obviously a lot of the buildings that were there have been repurposed for housing in schools and all that sort of stuff, hasn't it?
Yeah, and again, as you walk around the town, you can still see a lot of that history there. There's still some of the old signs, and the people that, whilst they have repurposed the buildings, they've kind of kept a lot of that kind of true style. And I mean, the Tesco's obviously a new building, but it's got a pagoda. I mean, they might be distilling through the back, but it's just a nod to the history.
Well, you never know. You never know.
Yeah, and then there's like literally over the road from us, there's the bus depot that used to be the distillery. Yeah, it's mad. I love it.
No, it's a beautiful place to walk through. I was there early part of last year. It seems like an eternity ago now, really. And we did a full 2 days there. So we did do Springbank, Glengyle, and then before we got the bus home, we had our lovely tour around Glen Scotia with your assistant distillery manager.
Hector, yes, good man.
Hector, yes. Thank you for reminding me of his name. I've totally forgot his name there. So yeah. So honestly, it was only us there, and there was about 7 of us. Honestly, couldn't have asked for a better tour. Absolutely fantastic. Loved it. Spent a fortune in the shop to load the bus up with, as you do.
Yeah. But I mean, it helps that we ply you with whiskey on the way around, you know what I mean? And then by the time you get to the shop, I'll take one of everything, that's fine.
Yeah, so we were booked in for the tour and a tasting as well. So we had a few drams on the way round. I think Hector actually only come in that day just to take us on the tour. Right. So we were literally the only tour booked for that day as well. And then like a tasting afterwards, and it was like, oh, well, I've not got nothing else on, so here's a bit of that and this, a bit of this, and so, brilliant. and then promptly like 7 of us like emptied the shop.
Campbelltown is the only region and official region as well of anywhere in Scotland for whiskey that I haven't been to yet. I was due to be there in August with 2 of my friends who may well be listening in now, and who obviously we're disappointed not to be able to really get up there. Travel for all of us was quite difficult at the time, and or impossible actually for one of us. So looking forward to getting there next year for sure. But I'll leave.
Oh, definitely. That's the thing. We're just buzzing to get everybody back in. Like, it was the thing that devastated me the most was having to cancel the
Campbelltown Festival. Yeah.
Devastated by that. But I mean, we managed to. I hope we managed to do an okay job in terms of converting as much of that as we could digitally, and try and bring that experience to everyone. But I mean, it worked out wonderfully. It made, rather than maybe a couple of thousand people actually physically come through Campbelltown, we got about 10,000 folk over the kind of 2-3 weeks from all over the world. China and Canada and Brazil.
So people could experience it that might not necessarily be able to get there normally.
Cool. So I got the rum from last year. I really enjoyed as well, but I absolutely love this Tawny Port one. This is fantastic. But this is, I mean, I heard about this, for a virtual thing, and as you were saying, and bought it there. So it's worked on at least me, but at least these other people you've been talking about as well bought lots of it. Wonderful. My friend, I think, is on his 3rd bottle, so we've done all right with him. Yeah. So
what do you guys think of 15 then?
I love this. This isn't the first time I've had it either. Same as you with the Sventek, and for me, it's got all those fruits, but there's like a salted licorice as well behind it on the nose, and
I love the. People sometimes think of salt in terms of flavour profile as being quite negative, but when it comes to Glen Scotia, I think because we're predominantly first fill or refill bourbons, so the vast majority of the time for me it comes through as like a salty caramel. And it's just such an amazing note. And like I said, with the fruits, let's say that this one for me is definitely more kind of orange peel maybe in the nose.
Yeah. And this, you say, so what casks have gone into this? Because I feel on the finish, I'm getting a little bit of smoke. I don't know if it's just me or if you've got some heavily charred.
No, it's just first fill and refill bourbons. We do a real flash finish of like 6 weeks in Oloroso, which you kind of get in the finish. You get that ever so slight wee bit of dryness again. Quite like the ick. That's just a cracking wee run for me.
Yeah, so obviously again, this isn't the first time I've tried the 15 either. And yet, like I said, it is a great staple. You expect a few maritime notes to come through because of where you are, etc. There's always that big discussion over terroir and, is it really a thing? Isn't it a thing? We'll leave that for a whole different. That could probably take up a whole show by itself. The merits or demerits of terroir.
Yeah. No, and it's I think
provenance. I like to talk about provenance more than terroir, and just having a sense of place at least. And you said this to you is like Campbelltown in a glass, and I imagine that that's not, you're not alone in that. And if you can give someone a sense of place, forget terroir for a moment or for 10 minutes or 10 years, we'll come back to it another time. But sense of place, like having Swedish oak and and the smoking process that we use, we give people a sense of place and a sense of Swedishness, hopefully, in our whiskies. And if this can achieve that same sort of thing, I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the things I love about, again, one of those other similarities between the Mackmyra and the Glen Scotia is I think there's those real common themes that, as much as there are different finishes and there's different elements to it, there is that commonality that runs through everything. And
you've got a house style, as it were.
Yeah. You can pour a glass and you'll know instantly that you might not know what the finish is or whatever, but I'll quite quickly pick up that it's a Mackmyra. It's very unique. And similarly with Glen Scotia, and that's a concerted effort to try and keep that like you said, that house style, keep that kind of Campbelltown style alive and kicking.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. So it's Kate's you've been great. Oh, brilliant. Glad you're enjoying them, Kate. Glad you're enjoying them. Yeah. It's nice to get some good feedback like that from, not just for us, obviously, but for Gary and his troops and that as well,
I think anyone following along in the comments will see that Callum and Kate, both fans, and we're glad to have them on board with us and along the journey of both brands, I think. So I know I've spoken to both of them quite a lot, and I'm sure, Gary, I know that you have as well.
Yes. Good evening, Rentons.
They were quite generous as well, I think, with you and Gary. I'm sorry, Mick, if you were left out, but they're our friends. So I know that, Gary, they sent you some samples of Mackmyra as well in the run-up.
Yes, yeah. I get the kind of full gambit of the Mackmyra. So like I said, it'd been ages.
I'm pretty much covered for work stuff.
You're sorted.
I'm good.
What were any highlights for you?
The Grand Tea was just that was just something totally different and just
wasn't
brilliant.
Wasn't it just?
And I think my hat goes off to Angela. Like, genuinely, the master blender is a dark art ultimately. And the light touch and the balancing of flavors and casks and stuff. Because I'm not a massive green tea fan, but the flavors it brings to that one is just magic.
You're in, Mick. You're in.
Yes.
We'll do a follow-up show soon with Gary, perhaps. Yeah. Well, I'll say thank you because they also sent me some Glen Scotia samples as well in the run-up, which I was very grateful for, and I thought they were absolutely delicious. And there was one Callum did actually. I don't know if it was a power of suggestion, but I've tried the Loch Lomond exclusive, the single cask from Loch Lomond. Yeah, that is phenomenal. Yeah. That is really good. The Southport Whisky Festival was in the mix as well. I really enjoyed that. But the Loch Lomond Whiskies one, that was just chef's kiss. Yeah. What do we think about the next round, Nick?
Let's do it. I believe Gary's going to supply it as well.
Yeah. Oh, we're going Glen Scotia again. Super.
Yeah, well, we're finishing on the
we're on a roll.
So this guy here is our new. So like you said with our Campbelltown Festival release, so we've done that limited edition over the last kind of 3 years, and that's all been about trying to incorporate as many people as we can into the Campbelltown Festival. Let's say before we've gone kind of fully digital, appreciating. I mean, it's difficult for me to get to Campbelltown from Glasgow. Do you know what I mean? It's a 3.5 hour drive when the rest of Thankful is ever open.
Exactly. As long as the roads are open, mate, we'll go.
Yeah, no, but never mind anybody from anybody else in the UK or even the rest of the world. So, like I said, it was trying to bring people from all over the world into the Campbelltown Whisky Festival feel. And then now this one, the Sherry Double Cask Finish, is our first seasonal release. So doing a very similar thing, but around that kind of winter festive time. And really trying to create a liquid that works for that season. Kind of similar to what you guys do, your seasonal releases. Really making a liquid for that season. So that's why we went with the double sherry. So it's finished in both Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez.
Nice.
And it just gives it those wonderful dried fruits and the spices as well.
Do you know the ratio between the two, Gary?
Yes, it is 30% first fill PX, 70% first fill Oloroso hogsheads.
Oh, nice. Both first fills, lovely.
So all fully unpeated, matured in American oak initially, and then, like I said, finished for about 8 to 10 months on the sherries. It's a very different beast from the festival editions. Like I said, we're trying to do something very different with it.
Yeah.
The nose is very. Sorry, but the nose is very distinct. It's you get like a fruit butter almost. It's like a big wave of texture. Yeah,
I get the buttery note come through from the nose.
Oh. Yeah, so this is the first time I've actually had it in a glass. I've kind enough to send us a sample so we could have a drink together this evening, and I thought I'd wait until now to do it. And this is just
exactly what
yeah, I like to do it just to catch myself out a bit, perhaps. But the nose alone is phenomenal. That is really great.
So it's cask strength. It's at 54.1. Cask strength, non-chill filtered, natural colour, and that's what we're trying to make sure. That's, for me, cask strength is if you're going to do a limited edition, you want to make it as special as you can. So
exactly,
where we can, I would always try and push us to put that out as cask strength.
So before we get too far into this, Gary, I believe you've even got a deal on for this and something else. Could you tell us a little bit about that, or what that deal might be, Gary?
Oh, sorry, me.
Yes. Oh, he got lost in the nose.
Sorry, I got lost in whiskey there. So we've got an offer on through the Glen Scotia website, where if you buy either the 15 or the cherry double cask finish, you'll get 10% off with the code MACK10, so MACK10.
So you can see that scrolling along at the bottom there, guys. MACK10 at glenscotia.com /buy online. Is that the right word? Is that a forward slash?
Forward slash, yeah. And then there's a hyphen in the middle, I think. I called a dash for a long time, but then was corrected some time ago. Yeah.
So while we're enjoying this, I think it would be remiss of us if we didn't mention on your maybe one of the most, probably one of the most diverse distilleries that comes underneath your portfolio as well, Gary. The Loch Lomond distillery.
Yes, so we're part of the independently owned group. So we have the Loch Lomond distillery, Glen Scotia distillery, and like I said, we've got the last of the Little Well casks.
The drops of.
Yes, those last precious drops.
And you're the man to talk to, I guess, for us to get some samples of that if we do a Mackmyra Little Mill show in a couple of weeks, maybe. Yeah,
I am. I'm not sure I'll be able to do as many of that one, but yeah.
See if I remembered that Little Mill fell into that portfolio. That would have been the number one on the show, I think. Yeah. Damn me, my bad memories. I'm getting old.
You've got a Loch Lomond. You've got. Oh, sorry, Gary. Go on.
No, on you go.
No, I was only going because I'm always interested, and I know Micky is too. The amount of different stills that you have a Loch Lomond, so how diverse a range of whiskies you can produce from one distillery. It's a bit, quite out there, but you've got one that's particularly unique.
Yes, so it's. The Loch Lomond distillery is a magic place, and it's still. I'm there 6 years, and I'm still getting to grips with it because it's got so much going on. But ultimately, we've got on the one still floor, you've got 3 different types of stills. So you've got one pair of classic pot stills, kind of onion-shaped line arm, but then we've also got 3 pairs of straight neck pot stills. So pot still base with a rectifying head. That's the beauties there.
Okay.
So these were developed, and again, it kind of all ties through really nicely. It's a type of still that was developed by a man called Duncan Thomas, chemist turned whiskey man, who owned Little Mill. And he basically developed these that are ultimately hybrids. So they're a move on from, a lot of people confuse them with Lomond stills. But the very distinct difference between them is a Lomond still has quite a short, squat, flat base. Our stills have got that classic pot still obviously kind of below the floor there. And the straight neck in a Lomond still will tend to have maybe only kind of 3-4 plates that can move, so that they'll open and close, so that they can adjust it. But we've actually got in the spirit safe, the spirit still will get 17 copper plates welded in place, so perforated plates. And what that's doing is ultimately increasing the contact with the copper, increasing the reflux, and it allows you to create that real lovely, smooth, super clear spirit, but it also helps us dial in the real fruity flavours.
Yeah.
Because again, we do. I don't know what you guys are at in terms of fermentation, but we both distilleries do very long fermentations. So for Loch Lomond, it can be anything up to, I think, 5-6 days. Or certainly up to kind of at least 4 days minimum. And at Glen Scotia, we're talking an average of 128.8 hours. Average.
Right. Yeah, I think
we're about just in between 4 and 5 days.
Yeah.
And it gets that fruitiness that comes through. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's all about creating those fruity flavours in the beer. So that secondary fermentation really building the long chain alcohols and the esters. Here comes the science bit. That really foster that fruity flavour, and the straight neck pot still is really good tool because of the cooling ring and those plates to really be able to bring those fruit flavours through into the final product.
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me at all to hear about the length of fermentation on your end. No. Talking about, as you just touched on, the similarities with the fruits, the esters that you create, and yeah,
absolutely.
This is brilliant. What do you think of this, Mick?
It's unusual, not in a bad way.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way.
It is unusual.
Probably one of the most unique drums that I've tried from Glen Scotia. In all fairness, I couldn't say, that reminds me a little bit of the 15 of the rum cask of whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's very, very different, but very, very enjoyable at the same time. So when I say different, that doesn't, a lot of people say, that's different, and they go and they say bad things. I quite go, that's different.
I mean that's the thing. As much as we like to have,
it builds.
Yeah, you like that. You obviously still have that commonality, but you still like to kind of go off a wee bit. As long as you circle back round.
I was very much like that when we launched. Obviously, Micky Richard wasn't part of the company at the time, but I've been a big fan of Mackmyra for a good few years. So to land a job with them was just a dream. But when we launched Apple Blonde, the first time I tried it, so that was Calvados casks, and I tried that, and I was like, "What is this? This isn't whiskey, surely." It was just mental that they've done this, and at the time as well, Calvados casks weren't allowed within Scotch either.
Yeah.
So and we got them from Kristen Duan. So again, dealing with people that are at the top of their game and have got really good.
You've got that traceability and that heritage from both sides.
Exactly. So try and drinking that and then tasting, and it did take me 2 or 3 drams to try and get my head around it. I'm not talking like massive house pour ones. You know what I mean? I'm not in a tasting environment here, guys. You know what I mean? So maybe 1 house pour overall.
Sure, Micky. Yeah, we all believe you. That's fine.
I promise.
different. But
like, wow, what have we done? This is fantastic. And this is building to be around that as well. It's something unusual. I couldn't compare that to even similar cask finishes from other distilleries. It is very quite unique in that.
It's that mixture of the PX and the Oloroso. It does, and again, it's another one that just takes you on a journey. You get some wonderful spices initially. I then kind of get into the more dried fruits, going from maybe kind of plum on the nose to those dried raisins and sultanas coming through. And then eventually, then you'll start to get more of that kind of sea salt drying sherry on the again, and it's back into the Glen Scotia character.
Yes, that's absolutely phenomenal.
And again, for me,
So Gary, we do hear that you've got a few famous followers for Loch Lomond.
Yes, aye. There's one or two. There's a certain captain that's always been a big.
I think Carl can flash up a picture
Oh, there he is. There's the man.
Very similar to how Richard's looking at the moment, minus the hat.
Yeah.
And I think if we show the Tintin picture as well. He's got his hat on. So yeah. So obviously, most people know that what Tintin looks like without his hat on. And so we didn't plan this. This is just what happened.
Was that meant to come like the dog or something? Was that me?
Come on, boy. Come on, Snowy. Come on, Snowy. Fantastic. Fantastic. Honestly. Oh, brilliant. Oh.
Good. Well, I think it might be time to move on to the next dram. But if you had to add, Gary,
sorry, just finishing off on that one, which I think the wonderful thing for me, and again, it does translate across both Glen Scotia and Mackmyra. That sherry double cask is 54%, but for me, drinks like 46. That doesn't need water.
See, those things getting up around there. I like to add a drop of water. I always taste it first, just to make sure. But and normally I would go for a drop of water. But I've not even been. The water jug is there. The pipette is ready, but I've not touched it at all.
Same for me, Mick. I forgot. I like as you. I do the same as you. I always try something neat to see what it's like for the first time, however it's been presented. I think for me, I always like to see what it's meant to be like, or what these people that have put the whiskey together have wanted you to try it as or try it like, and then I'll add a drop or two to taste. And sometimes I do it even if I don't think I need to, just for an experiment. But that I just forgot completely and just knocked it back at 54%. Yeah, soft. Soft,
dangerous, isn't it? That's
dangerously easy.
And it doesn't give you that big. It doesn't give you that big alcohol punch like maybe a few other spirits or whiskies, up around that sort of ABV would give you, and that sort of checks you at the door, sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? I definitely get a wee touch of water there. Maybe even a splash occasionally. But no, that is I had to double check the bottle, mate. To be fair. I was like, no, it's not, is it? No, it is. Is he giving me the right sample?
Before we do move on, I'll just say one thing about you mentioned different but good. I think I often describe Mackmyra whiskey to people that haven't really tried it before as more or less a little bit like that, because it is unique. It doesn't really taste like anything that you can get in Scotland. People say to me, "Oh, what's it like in terms? What region might it be like?" And it's hard. It might have little bits that are similar to this region or that region, but it's its own thing. It's different.
I don't think you'd be doing it justice comparing it to any other region.
No, I'll try not to. I'll steer away from it. But but if someone asks, I'll tell them what I said. I'll say, it's not really like any of them. It's its own thing. Different, but good. And
I mean, we've got expressions. We've got
anyone at home, Nick, sorry, that's got 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, however many Glen Scotias already, and think, oh, do I need this other limited edition one? I think you do, because I don't think it's anything like the ones that you'll have at home. So,
definitely
good bottle to go for. Yeah.
I was going to say, you guys have got a new seasonal that's coming out as well.
Yeah. So again, before you introduce it again, this one's very much like the 11 in that it's very different, but a good different. You go, I've never tried anything like this before. We've got expressions, that are familiar. So sherry cask finishes, port cask finishes, things like that. That people, wine cask finishes. Maybe not a familiar type of wine, but again, wine cask finishes. We've got them as well, but we've also got different ones like like the green tea casks, Calvados before it became allowed by the SWA, and the wine cask we just released this year. But ultimately, like Rich will introduce to you now, this one, I mean, this is just
this is out there. So this is the and Mickey, I think, has got the pronunciation of this better than I.
You absolute chicken.
So it's shush bash rook, and I think if we can, there's a spelling we can have up at any point. Someone can find one of those to put up. But I look at it as Kush Bash Rock. So I think if you call it that, you'll be Cause Bars Rock. You'll be forgiven, at least in my world.
We shorten it like we did on all the other stuff with KBR. KBR.
I was going to lead on to that. Yeah, because KBR is what we're calling it now internally. So yeah. to KBR. It just Sweden keep doing it. I think it's another thing that make us a bit authentic, a bit different. We've got lots of Swedish
and what
uncompromised in their names. Yeah.
What does shush bash stroke
It means
translate to?
cherry smoke. So Gary,
okay.
you're probably familiar, you know, doing a tweak tasting and you know, following us for a few years. You got Svensk Ek earlier, you know, Swedish oak. Svensk Rook, you'll be familiar with, I'm sure. Swedish smoke or Svensk Rock. Rook, yes, is how I've been told to say it. So the last three letters of shush bash rook are the same. So smoke at the end. And the first, you know, however many letters and umlauts and whatever involved is cherry. So it means cherry smoke. And the reason for that, so 4 different casks have gone into this. So there's only 1,500 bottles made. And I think fewer than 250 are actually allocated for the UK. So there really is, and quite a lot of them have been sold already, actually.
Lots
it hasn't even
already.
Yeah, it hasn't even actually come out yet. So I think it's the 25th that it's released, Mick. 25th, yeah. 25th, so we've had 4 casks have gone in, 2 of which have had, you know, smoky influence, 2 of which have had our elegant recipe, which is our unpeated recipe, or new make spirit, we should call. So the first 2 casks that had the unpeated spirit were both ex-bourbon. One was 100 litres in size, one was 200 litres in size. And the cherry smoke, so the cherry wine cask that we've treated ourselves with some cherry wine that we got from a German winemaker, whose name, Mickey, I think you've managed to get this name. Kirsch is the last part of it.
Yeah, it's Amor Kirsch.
Amor Kirsch, yeah. So
yeah,
so I think quite a big player in German.
Amorea Kirsch.
Whiskey tasting a language lesson, gents. I'm all over tonight.
This is half of our tastings are taken up with us trying to pronounce things and then making jokes about trying to pronounce.
Amorea Kirsch. Thank you, Carl.
I've just seen a
on the ball. So thank you very much for sharing this, gents. A treat to be able to get something that's not even on the market yet.
Well,
yeah, no, it's not.
So
you're one of very few people to be trying it at the moment, mate.
That's it. Well, I've only opened mine. Got mine, I think, a couple of days ago. So, Mickey, you actually had yours ahead of me. You lucky boy.
Yeah.
So the 2 casks. So 2 elegant recipe casks from ex-bourbon of different sizes, and then 2 smaller casks that we've used that we've put are some peated or some smoked tail whiskey into them. We call, and I'll touch on the smoked tails in a moment. One of those casks that's had the cherry wine in was 128 litre American oak. So, you know, lots of sweetness and richness you can get from that virgin oak. And ex-bourbon cask, 100 litres in size. So I think it's about a third of this whiskey came from smoky or smoke-influenced recipe, and the other 2/3 is from the elegant.
I love the cherry note on the nose of that. That's something I've never had in a whiskey. That's amazing.
I can imagine it being a bit of a Marmite thing, but you know, there'll be a middle ground for everything as well. But if you haven't, sometimes when you're not familiar with something, you try it. So a friend of mine, I gave on the sly a dram of this to yesterday, and he wasn't sure what to think at the beginning. I gave it to him blind, and he had no idea what to think or what it was. He couldn't guess anything. He couldn't guess. That
would be fun. That would be fun to
do. But like tar and smoke and just quite a heavy.
The smoke's obviously there, and there's a real nice wee spice to it. Not too overpowering or anything. It's just a nice wee tingle in the nose.
Yeah.
So the smoke side of it. I mean, Mickey, I'll let you talk a little bit, if that's all right, about what a smoke tail is, but maybe touch on first, you know, what our smoking process is and you know why we're unique. And
so obviously we're one of there's our main smoke man himself, Hakan. So we floor malt and smoke our own barley. So one of, obviously, as you know, Gary, one of very few distilleries in the world to actually do that. Obviously, our elegant, our non-smoky recipe, we buy the malted barley in. But for our smoky barley recipe, we floor malt and smoke ourselves. And in that container, Hakan was stood in front of there, just next to the distillery. It's no shipping container. With a stove outside it that we build the fire in. So we actually use a layer of juniper twigs on top of the burning peat. So we get the fire up and going, some wood kindling and stuff like that, get the fire up and going. We build a peat bed on the top of that, and then we put a layer of juniper twigs on top of that to give it that proper like Scandi like twist on smoking. Because obviously, you know, Scandi smoking for food and things that goes back years and years, like, you know. So yeah, so we do that. There you go. There's the.
And is it? Do you use the juniper twigs on all the smoking? Do you do any just standard peat, if you like, or is it all got the juniper?
No, it's all got that. So that's that Mackmyra twist again, or that Scandi twist again. So everything we strive for is local. So the peat comes from a local peat bog called the Karen Mossen. The juniper twigs are given to us by the local power company during their maintenance periods. Do you know what I mean? We'll use the juniper in our gin that we make, and we'll use the twigs to put onto the fire. So we smoke to about 60 ppm, and as you'll know, Gary, that's fairly high. You know, even the big boys of smoke don't even really get up to that unless you're talking optimal level. Do you know what I mean? So we're hitting that with that, but we only use 23% roughly of our smoked barley to obviously 77% of our unsmoked barley to make the Ruch recipe, or make our smoky recipe. So in proper numbers, that's 350 kilograms out of a 1,500 kilogram batch is the smoky barley.
You had those maths written down, Nick. Don't lie. I know you did.
He's got a massive whiteboard the other side of his screen with these numbers on it.
I wish, honestly. So when we redecorate the front room where I'm sat at the moment, that's going to be going up, honestly, because it's going to help. My brain is literally melted at the moment. But no,
I think, like you said, I think again it talks back to that dark art of the master blender and 100%. Angela's work of knowing exactly how much of that smoked barley to use.
Yeah.
That just.
That's a good point, a good sort of segue, if you will, into talking about the smoked ales. So if anyone's not familiar with smoked ales, and I haven't heard of this practice at other distilleries, although it wouldn't surprise me if people did do it, but I've never heard of it. So one of these casks was a smoked tail, we call it, recipe or whatever it is. So we go through a run of however many weeks or months of doing peated or our smoky recipe, going through the process. For the next, I don't know what, 3, perhaps even 4 weeks maybe, but 2 or 3 weeks, let's say, of running elegant recipe, unpeated recipe through the stills. No matter how hard you scrub the inside of your stills or wherever it is in the process, you can't get all of that smoke to disappear. So what Angela does, because she's quite sensitive to it, she always noticed the difference from those casks that came from the first few runs after a smoky run or batches that we did. So when we have those come through, she or at the distillery mark those casks with an X to indicate that it's elegant recipe's gone through, unpeated recipe's gone through the process.
But
it's gone through, just after we've done a smoky run. So there'll be a hint of smoke to it, or just a wisp in the background, if you will. And so that's what. So we're talking about master blenders and Angela and having to work and work out what to put into what blend, or which single malt we release, how to blend that together. Smoked ales is a really big part of that, and there's a few of our whiskies around. If you look at some of the product sheets you can find on mackmyra.co.uk or mackmyra.com, you'll see it will say smoked ale, and if anyone's ever wondered what that is, it's the recipe the run that's gone through after a peated run and just has
They obviously they differ in strength as well. So obviously the first run, the casks from the first run after the smoky will be quite heavier, and then going off before it goes into how we know our elegant recipe to be will be a lot lighter. So use a combination of those casks to get a certain element of smokiness for a recipe and stuff. And it's just literally just all about that chef process. Not a fan of juniper, so I can taste it more on the dram. Oh, cool. As long as you like it. As long as you like it, that's the main thing. And it's nice to hear somebody sensitive to juniper as well. So maybe if I'm not mentioned it, would you still got it? I don't know. Was that maybe?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would have. I'm not sure. That's one I would have picked out. Not knowing.
But do you have a lot of juniper though, Gary? In all fairness,
no. I'm not a big gin fan, so it's not. So it's not one that. I mean, if I need to start drinking more gin because of that, that's okay. I'll do it. I'm devoted to the cause, Mickey.
Yeah. No, I get you, man. I get you. All power. But when I do tastings, I don't tend to give out a lot of tasting notes. I say I won't give you tasting notes. You tell me what you think. Tell me what you pick up, because everybody's different. You know, everybody's life
It's such a personal thing.
100%, Gary. 100%. Yeah. And it's it's like this.
Official tasting notes are great in terms of giving you an idea of what to expect and what the master blender and the master distiller have gone about trying to create.
Intends for you.
Yeah, but it doesn't necessarily mean that that's all the elements you're going to pick up. And it's one of the things, like I said, doing the Twitter tasting with the Mackmyra stuff, it's brilliant because it just opens you up to all these other flavours, and it's, as much as it is obviously the power of suggestions there, but it's a wonderful thing with whiskey for me. And that if it brings flavours into you that you wouldn't have thought of before that, like that, we'll all have had it where you're sitting at a dram and you're going, like, what is that? There's something there that I just can't put my finger on it. And then somebody else says it, and you go, pfft. And it can be something like the maddest one I've had with a rum tasting was like pencil shavings. You're like, yeah, that. Well, I mean, not that I'm eating pencil shavings or not, but you just get that.
You've got that memory.
Exactly.
There's something to it. There's something to it for sure. And the power of suggestion, like as Micky said, I think it's, I don't tell people how to go about doing their job and things, but I'll be similar to that. Don't offer up too much, to begin with. Let people tell you what they get, and then and if you say, oh, that's an official tasting notes, there's a little bit of a at a boy, at a girl, or whatever. You can feel good that you've got something that might have been official, even though half the other people might not get it, but they'll get loads of other different things as well. But then help people out a little bit, and then say, after they've had an opportunity, then say, oh, is anyone getting any of this or that? And I think for me, I'm still building my vocabulary. There's so many things where I look at my tasting notes, because I keep a bit of a log of the things that I've tried. And there are so many things that sound exactly the same to the others, even though I remember them as being very different. But it's because I couldn't quite nail down, 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 different notes that were in there. All I know is that I liked it. So if I can't get them, I'll put very nice, had that mouthfeel I like. Because I can't think of anything else to put down. But I think avoid the power of suggestion where possible, but then embrace it when you can as well, because it helps you. It helps you learn.
Yeah, but I mean, it's even down to how you feel, what time of day it is. There was an interesting one. Mrs. New Dram Drinker did a very interesting one recently, where she went on and she tried the same dram 3 times in different occasions, and she went through and she explained what time of day it was, how she was feeling, and went through it and reflected back on it. It was really, really interesting.
Yeah, those guys are pretty good. I quite like those guys. They're pretty good.
They're brilliant, yeah. They had one tasting note a little while ago, I think it was hers actually, we had tropical-ish on their notes.
Yes,
and,
yes.
It cracked me up, because that's exactly what, I know that vibe, but it's tropical-ish, because you can't say exactly what this thing is.
It's in that ballpark. It's in there, but...
I literally bought the T-shirt. They had some T-shirts printed up at tasting note, because some people laughed at it, and I bought a T-shirt of it. I've sent them a photo of me wearing it on the Isle of Mull a few weeks ago as well. So tropical-ish. I really like those guys. Yeah.
The palate in this is wonderful.
It's beautiful. Isn't it?
I get
different again.
Yeah, the smoke comes more to the fore for me. Cherry takes a bit of a back seat. But yeah, again, working really well together.
Yeah.
It's only 40. It's not got its ABV. It's got it's got a low ABV. It's not been down to that. I think that's basically natural cask strength. Reason being, mature down in the Bodas mines, where we have constant, relatively constant temperature, but pretty constant humidity of up at 99%. So with humidity like that, without getting too geeky, but you lose ABV faster than the water content from your casks, and the fact that we've had smaller casks involved in it as well, where you tend to lose ABV a little bit faster too, especially in the environment where they are. So even though it's only, I think the smoky casks were 9 years old, and the unsmoked, the elegant recipe casks were 10. So even at 9 or 10 years old, it's come down to an ABV where you might expect to find something, up in the 30s or 40s, in terms of like years of age from somewhere, Scotland, a bit more familiar to people for rates of.
What ABV are you guys going into the cask at? Are you going in at 63.5?
63. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
63. Yeah. So
and then that was one of my other things. I noticed it's not you're not. I know it's very flavour led, but you also not got a lot of age statements, if any.
No, one.
One. 10. The 10.
Yeah, one. The 10. Micky's got.
What's the
I've got a bit of an answer to that, Gary. Actually, something that I say on tastings, and I've said to friends for a while, and it's very convenient for a couple of ambassadors working for a company that don't use age statements to present all these reasons for why we don't. I appreciate the how convenient it might sound, but it's genuine. Well, hopefully it'll come across what I'm about to say. But we use so many different sizes of casks just for a starter. In different recipes that we have, and I've talked about the 128 litres that we've used in this. But there are other recipes, other seasonal releases, for example, we've had where 30-litre casks might have been involved too. And just nuts and bolts of it, the smaller the cask is, the faster it will develop, the whiskey that's in size. So if we use a 30-litre cask that is perfect and brilliant whiskey, and if you've tried any of our single casks from our reserve or ready cask programs, and Gary, I think you're going to at some point soon, talk about that later maybe. But that might be ready at 5 years. And the rest of the whiskey in there might be between 10 and 14 years old. And if we were to use an age statement there, we'd have to call it 5, as you well know, and the people watching probably do too. So I guess it was a matter of keeping some consistency and not having some that have an age statement and lots that have no age statement, and then those maybe being looked at as inferior products because they don't have an age. So I think part of the decision was just keep it flavor led. So I moved that across the board. And what that means is, for Angela, she's then able to use everything in the warehouse that she wants to blend something together. So instead of having an 11-year-old and, whoever's blending anything from any distillery around the world, if your brand is, not about age statements necessarily, but they use age statements, you are limiting that blender, that master blender for, so much stock that they can't use. They can't touch anything under 11 years old, even if it would be perfect to use that cask or a few casks from 7 or 8 just to balance out some of the older, richer notes of an 18-year-old that they might have, for example. So they can't do it. So I think with it, we're left with the freedom of Angela just being able to use every single ingredient in their house. So I think from
makes a lot of sense. The shackles are off, and it's for such a flavour-led distillery. Makes a lot of sense.
And I think for us, because we're relatively young, we've only been in the game for 20 years or so, we don't have that precedent set. We're the first people in Sweden to start making single malt. We can do what we want, and I think our brand, people recognise, I hope that they do anyway, and see the brand. If it's got a no age statement, that means absolutely nothing. It's flavour led. People recognise us for the way that we operate that way. So I don't think it confuses anybody that all of a sudden there's a no age statement around. I think it just keeps it consistent and all about the flavour.
Super. In terms of the maturation, you mentioned the mine. Is all the maturation done in the mine?
No. Most of it. Most of it, but not all of it. There's I might let Micky take this one.
Well, I suppose the side to it, obviously.
So we've got a forest warehouse as well, not too far from the distillery.
So you do.
Yeah. So there, obviously, again, the water evaporates faster than the ABV. So a bit more like a traditional dunnage warehouse, really. We've got another 2 distilleries around Sweden, one on an archipelago, which is quite unusual, and we've actually got one of our warehouses in Germany, northern part of Germany. So we've got about 5 all in all. But like Rich said, the predominant aging does happen in the Bodis, but we do have a decent spread around the country as well to even some things out as well.
Yeah, you've got.
And it also helps with our reserve cask program that's around Europe and stuff like that as well, and in the UK. So yeah.
Nice.
So not just the deep dark mine.
Super. Yeah.
Well, closing thoughts on this dram then, because we said we might aim for an hour. I think we've got carried away. We've had too much.
Well, I think we just tipped over that, but
But what do we think, Gary? What do you think of this overall? What do you prefer, this or the Svensek?
I enjoy them both, and I think it's always a tough one to say which you prefer.
I know. I'll put you in a box.
Time and a place for every dram for me. I think I would probably Eck. I can take it any time of the day. Again, very similar to the 15. But I think for me, like over the kind of winter months, the Horsburgh. Oh, so close.
KBR. You have to get a bit of your list on.
But yeah, I think over the festive months, like kind of, do you know what I mean? It's dark at 4 o'clock up here, and it's when you just want that nice warming dram to kind of see through a wee bit. Yeah, it'll be absolutely spot on for that.
Yeah, for sure.
I think and again, it's worked really nice. I think the two drams from each distillery have mirrored each other. I think more than we could have genuinely planned it.
100%, mate. Obviously the 15 was a bit of a late introduction, was a bit of a surprise that you sort of like went, oh shit, right, yeah, okay, cool, yeah, let's do that one as well. But no, it has worked out really, really well.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? You can plan for all these things in the world, but you never quite get to know how well it works until you actually do this. And this has been one of those. We've actually planned this pretty damn well, gentlemen. Thank you very kindly.
Well, see, if I was organising an independent tasting and I wanted to do two things, from our distilleries for whatever reason it might be, owner of a shop or people at a club, I think these four, I'd be very happy with having put these four in the order that we've had them, and the whiskies themselves. So I'll say it's probably a time to recap the offers, Mick.
Yes.
Do you think?
Let's do
then we'll go. So if you've got the R1, and we'll let Gary do his.
From us at Mackmyra, put in the code LOCHMAC, buy one Shush Bashrook and get 40% off a Spence Gek. That will remain open until the 22nd of November. And Gary, yourself?
Yeah, and then for us, it's using the code MAC10 at the glenscotia.com website, and that will get you 10% off either the 15-year-old or the sherry double cask finish. And that'll run for 2 weeks as well.
Nice.
Cracking deals.
From some of the comments earlier, I think you've already had some takers on that, mate. So that's pretty good. So all good, guys. So me and Rich will be back tomorrow evening with our monthly tasting of our core range and the Yak liquor. So that's 7 o'clock tomorrow on our normal channels. And then me and Rich will be back again on Friday. A busy old week for us. But we'll be back with our second lock-in, or whatever you want to call it, of Mackmyra in, and we've got the fantastic Matt Mackay of the Dramble Thane joining us for that as well. So that should be a pretty good relaxing chat on Friday.
Infamous Matt.
I'm looking forward to that. The Mackmyra in, I think, has been excellent. Have you got anything coming up, Gary? Anything you'd like to let the people know about? Putting you on the spot.
No, I think I've done all my tastings for this month. We're hoping to get some tasting packs out and get some pre-Christmas tastings organised. So keep an eye on the social media on the website for that. We did our dunnage tasting packs during the festival, and we're trying to do something a bit like that, but with a core range to try and get
that. By the way, can I just say the dunnage tasting that you went along on the video, so it didn't matter when you did it, was phenomenal. I personally enjoyed that.
I tuned in live for the Southport Festival. We had that dunnage pack come out for. I know you released a dunnage pack for other tastings you did too, but I joined the Southport one, and they were absolutely spectacular. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Gary,
Mr. McAllister, he's good at what he does. He picks some cracking casks for that tasting, and yeah, I mean he's Campbelltown born and bred, so you're not going to get anybody better to take you through those kind of casks. That's for sure.
No, and he presents so well as well. I'll say that was it was brilliant having him on, or and listening to it. So, and we spoke about the Mackmyra in, Gary. I don't know if you'd ever care to join us at the Mackmyra in. We just do a virtual pub on Fridays. We'll talk to you a little bit. You've said it now on camera.
I'm not following Matt. I'm not going to week after Matt. That's not.
No. So at the moment, we're booked up until the end of the year for guests in the pub anyway, mate. So you might have to be a New Year guest, brother.
We'll have you on, though. Looking forward to it. But
do that.
That's it.
Do that, Jim. Let's make it happen.
We'll do it. I'll talk to you about it afterwards, and we'll get something sorted out. And that's going to be us. So let's wrap it up. We'll say, Gary, thank you so much for joining us. I've learned a lot, and I've enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, gents.
Yeah,
Genuine
Micky,
pleasure. Thank you for having me.
it's been our pleasure, I can say. And Micky, brilliant co-host yet again. Thanks very much. And thanks everyone for watching at home. Really appreciate all of the comments, everyone following along. Thanks again for all the support, and hope to see you again sometime soon. Brilliant.
Cheers, guys. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.